28-year-old nurse RENIEZE FLETCHER and 23-year-old JANICE HOWELL, a teacher of Retreat Drive, Bayview, Bull Bay in St. Andrew, who were both reported missing over the last 24 hours, have been found alive. The police have launched a major probe into what's believed to be the abduction of the women, who were also reportedly robbed. Miss Fletcher was reportedly found this afternoon in an inner-city community in St. Andrew. Preliminary reports are that Miss Fletcher was abducted and robbed by gunmen. Fletcher went missing after she left the nurse's residence at the University Hospital of the West Indies, UHWI, in Papine last evening and boarded a motor vehicle. An alarm was raised when Miss Fletcher was not heard from. The police and members of the UHWI community appealed to the public for information on the nurse's disappearance. Meanwhile, JANICE HOWELL, who went missing last evening, has also been found alive. Reports have emerged that Howell was last seen leaving the Value Community Health Center in Bull Bay, St. Andrew. When colleagues and family members could not make contact with Miss Howell, the police were contacted. A subsequent search led the police to Howell. It's believed Miss Howell was also abducted and robbed by criminals. Howell has since informed colleagues that she has been traumatized by the incident, but is thankful to be alive. The police are probing whether the same network of criminals is responsible for the abduction of the women. In other news tonight, an armed standoff situation in Cumberland, Meadows in Portmore, St. Catherine was brought to an end earlier today when members from the Jamaica Constabulary Force, JCF's Specialized Operations, entered a residence and arrested a man. The shooter has been identified as a 35-year-old former member of the Jamaica Defense Force. A constable was shot and injured during the confrontation with the armed resident after the police responded to reports of a man firing gunshots at the location at approximately 12:15 p.m. Now, when the police arrived, the man reportedly opened gunfire at them, injuring the police constable. His injuries are not believed to be life-threatening. Additional police resources were brought in from the Specialized Weapons and Tactics SWAT team when it was learned that Johnson had barricaded both himself and his young child inside the house. Despite being fired at, the police showed significant restraint and engaged the man in intense negotiations to de-escalate the situation. The standoff came to an end when Johnson surrendered after the house was breached by the SWAT team. A licensed 9mm pistol was seized in the incident, along with 21 rounds of ammunition. The shooter, who was also injured during the incident, was taken to the hospital, where he was admitted for treatment under police guard. Still making the news tonight, Prime Minister Andrew Holness, during yesterday's World Leaders Summit of the 26th Conference of Parties, COP26, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, held yesterday in Glasgow, Scotland, encouraged developed countries to provide meaningful funding solutions for small island developing states that continue to bear the brunt of the fallout from global warming and other negative impacts of climate change. Here is Colleen May with the details.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness yesterday delivered a sombering message at the World Leaders Summit at the start of the Global Climate Conference in Glasgow, telling delegates the same urgency with which the world has responded to the novel coronavirus pandemic needs to be applied to the climate crisis.
As we gather here at COP26 in the context of a pandemic, the message is clear. Climate change remains a preeminent priority for global action. As we have come to appreciate with the pandemic, no one is safe until everyone is safe. So too with climate change. All countries must act responsibly and with ambition to preserve our climate for current and future generations. Importantly, the pandemic demonstrated that the world has the capacity to develop global solutions in record time when we believe and agree that the problem threatens our safety and security. It also demonstrated the need for equity. Equity is similarly critical to our response to climate change. Countries that have profited the most from carbon over decades have a responsibility to make resources and technology available to others to adapt and transition to low-carbon economies. This was the basis of the 2009 $100 billion per year pledge, which still needs to be met if the developing world is to achieve our resilience and low-carbon emission goals.
Prime Minister, who was one of more than 120 heads of state and government to address the conference, stressed that if developing countries are to have any realistic chance of meeting their climate ambitions, they need financing that is predictable, less fragmented, and easier to access.
If we are to have any realistic chance of meeting our climate ambitions, we need financing that is predictable, less fragmented, and easier to access. Allow me to emphasize that for small island developing states, the greater need is for funding for loss and damage, which is necessary for our protection and recovery from disasters, as well as for adaptation. There are creative funding solutions. For example, with grant support from our development partners, Jamaica became the first small island state in the world to independently sponsor a catastrophe bond which will provide financial protection against losses from hurricanes. Also, with GCF support, we launched a green bond project with our stock exchange towards mobilizing domestic and regional capital to finance resilient infrastructure projects.
Prime Minister HOLNESS explained that climate change disproportionately affects a small island developing states such as Jamaica and must continue to lobby for increased urgency and action to respond to this climate emergency which threatens our very existence.
Furthermore, in collaboration with the UK government, the GCF and Oxford University, we are developing a predictive climate risk tool to identify vulnerable areas and guide the building of infrastructure. This will also support sound investment decision-making. Colleagues, while climate change affects all countries, the impact on small island developing states is disproportionately greater. Climate change threatens our very survival. Meeting the 1.5 target is a matter of life and death for us. We are at a pivotal moment in history. All countries must increase their NDC ambitions to get us back on track. Despite significant fiscal constraints and development challenges, Jamaica is acting. We submitted our enhanced NDCs in June 2020, one of the first countries to do so, and launched our implementation plan last month. We have commenced preparation for our 2050 long-term emissions reduction and climate resilience strategy. Our climate-smart agriculture projects are integrating technology and once again attracting young people. Colleagues, our actions will determine whether the planet will remain livable for future generations.
Reporting from Mellow TV News, I'm Colleen May.
Thank you, Colleen, for that report. In tonight's COVID-19 update, 3 additional COVID-19 deaths and 47 new cases have been recorded on the island, increasing total fatalities now to 2,246 and the total of confirmed cases on record to 89,170. The deceased are comprised of an 86-year-old man from St. Anne, a 77-year-old man from Kingston and St. Andrew, and a 67-year-old man from Hanover. Meanwhile, of the new cases, 21 are women and 26 are men, ranging in age from 42 days to 96 years. Here is your parish breakdown. Kingston and St. Andrew recorded 11 new cases. St. James recorded 7 cases. St. Catherine and Westmoreland recorded 6 cases each. Trelloni and Hanover recorded 5 cases each. Manchester recorded 3 new cases. St. Mary recorded 2 cases, while Clarendon and St. Elizabeth recorded 1 case each. St. Anne, Portland, and St. Thomas did not record any cases for the stipulated period. In the meantime, there were 176 additional recoveries, increasing the total of recovered persons now to 58,267, of which 28,036 are active. Still tonight, Tourism Minister Edmund Barclay today noted that he welcomes news that the United States of America's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, has removed Jamaica from its Level 4 Avoid Travel to this Destination risk assessment. Now, Jamaica is ranked at Level 3, which urges U.S. travelers to be fully vaccinated before traveling. Minister Bartlett said, quote, "This is a very positive development. I want to commend our health authorities and the people of Jamaica for working to bring down the rates of COVID-19 infections and hospitalizations, which augurs well for our risk assessment rankings." End quote. He added that beyond that, the resilient corridor remains a very safe space for visitors and workers alike, with comparatively high vaccination rates and extremely low infection rates. Senior advisor and strategist in the Ministry of Tourism, Delano Sivright, noted that this is good news, adding that the previous Level 4 ranking caused jitters in some circles and was certainly not good optics. However, he said that with this improved ranking, it will be most helpful in the ministry's current and very aggressive efforts to boost tourist arrivals from all their markets. In the meantime, Minister Edmund Bartlett announced yesterday that Jamaica will later this month start receiving at least 16 flights per week from the United Kingdom, returning the island to approximately 100% airline seat capacity as the nation's tourism numbers rebound. Minister Bartlett is currently in the United Kingdom, UK, with a high-level team from the Ministry of Tourism and the Jamaica Tourist Board, JTB, participating in the World Travel Market, one of the largest international tourism trade shows in the world. The engagements in the UK concludes a global markets blitz led by Bartlett and his senior officials, which included Jamaica's 2 largest source markets, the United States and Canada, which reaped massive success in dramatically boosting airlift to the island and reassuring stakeholders on the COVID-19 related safety of the destination. Continuing with the news tonight, the pharmacy chain Fontana Limited has launched their COVID-19 vaccination initiative that started at their Waterloo location on Saturday. Members of the public who are eligible to be vaccinated are advised to visit the Ministry of Health and Wellness's JamCovid website at jamcovid19.moh.gov.jm/vaccination to book an appointment at Fontana Waterloo. Fontana Limited in a statement said that at this time, the next available dates for appointments are November 3 to 6, 2021. If appointments are fully booked, The company said it will be accepting walk-ins. However, this will be done solely on availability, in instances where appointments are missed. The COVID-19 vaccines currently available include AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. Both are free of charge. The company also noted that subsequent to the official opening of the Fontana Waterloo's vaccination center, all other locations will open their vaccination sites in the upcoming weeks, and dates will be dependent upon the availability of certified nurses. Continuing with the news tonight, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information Youth Division yesterday launched their National Youth Month and the National Youth Policy Creative Challenge competition. Here is Colleen May with more on this story.
As part of the National Youth Month launch yesterday, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information has also launched the National Youth Policy Creative Competition as one of the key slate of activities towards the accomplishment of key Youth Month objectives. Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Robert Morgan, said that this year, the ministry, with the support of key stakeholders in the private and public sector, will be coordinating a month-long series of activities in celebration of Youth Month.
Some of our activities this month include Investing and Youth, the Proven Edition, All About the Vax Forum, Youth with Disabilities, Differently Abled but Well-Abled Forum, Virtual Summit, The Future of Work, How Digitization Affects Employment in Partnership with Digital Jamaica, Youth Entrepreneurship Through Agriculture Exposition, Mental Health Symposium, The Impact of Trauma on Psychological Development of Youth, National Youth Council of Jamaica Annual General Meeting, Virtual Inauguration Ceremony for National Student Leader, NSSC, JUTS and JPA, the launch of the Social Entrepreneurship Program, the Heart of Youth Series, around-the-table discussions with notable and successful professionals, and the 12th sitting of the National Youth Parliament of Jamaica. These are just some of the events we have lined up for our young persons this month, with more being planned at the local level through various stakeholders. We ask our young persons to sign up and log on to ensure that they join in these discussions and to begin their evolution through gaining the knowledge that is being shared by a diverse group of professionals.
The competition offers Jamaican youth aged 15 to 29 years old the opportunity to express why at least one of the 6 national youth policy goals are important to the youth population broadly and their personal responsibility in supporting the government in fulfilling the policy's intended goals. Entries opened yesterday, November 1, and will close January 28, 2022 in the form of written, artistic, or video entry submissions. Meanwhile, Mr. Morgan announced the Cabinet's approval of a special task force to deal with the issue of street children.
The street children issue is a very complicated issue because not all children on the streets are homeless. There are children who are on the streets because they want to be there or because their parents have sent them out to work. But that doesn't negate the fact that there is a challenge with street children. So recently, Cabinet gave approvals for the setting up of a task force to look at the issue of street children and come up with permanent solutions to deal with the issue of street children. So you're going to hear more from my main minister, HOWELL Williams, looking at how we can do something important to solve the issue of street children. We are in the middle of planning a good parenting campaign. That is not a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year campaign, but a long-term campaign. It's work that it is being done between the National Parenting Support Commission as well as the CPFSA. One of the big issues that we have to contend with is how do we empower parents, for example, to not use violence as a means of instruction, for example, corporal punishment. This is something that we plan to ban eventually when we reform the Child Care and Protection Act. But while we're doing that, we have to give them the tools to empower them to use a different type of method of discipline. There are also a lot of need for parents to understand good parenting practices outside of disciplining their children, the importance of enforcing education, a culture of education within the society, the importance of manners and respect and those sort of things which have diminished over the years within our society. And I think the National Good Parenting Campaign is going to address those. We're in the planning stage of it, so we are not able to speak much about it now, but it's something that we should look forward to.
He also explained why some schools were selected for face-to-face classes and the challenges faced with the reopening of high schools.
What we've announced is face-to-face for some schools, primary schools and early childhood institutions. I think about 300 and odd public schools out of about 730 thereabout. Private prep schools have always had the opportunity to open once they get the approval from the Ministry of Health. The biggest challenge we have, however, is the high schools. The government has a policy that says unless we get 65% of the school population vaccinated, then we cannot have face-to-face there. And then there's also the issue of the associated staff in the school system, the teachers, the administrators, and so forth. The science is telling us that children under 12 cannot be vaccinated. So it would be pointless to set a requirement for children under 12 to be vaccinated, but children over 12 can be vaccinated. And I can tell you that I've just seen news that we're supposed to get probably almost 200,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine this week, which will also assist the ministry significantly in vaccinating more persons in the high school system. But the most important thing that I want to spread this message, and my minister spreads the message as well, get vaccinated. We're asking as many people. We have enough vaccines for everyone who wants to be vaccinated. So the best way for us to normalize our education system is through vaccination, and the vaccines are available.
Reporting for Mellow TV News, I am Colleen May.
Thank you, Colleen, for that report. And that's our news package for you tonight. Thank you for tuning in to Mellow TV Evening News at 8. I am Shelley Ann Hill. Do stay safe and pleasant viewing.